draw some policy implications from this analysis. Then as an economist, when we ask question about what is oil scarcity and how we can measure it, the definition of oil scarcity is very simple. When the supply is not enough to meet the demand at specific prevailing prices, that means that the resource or the oil is scarce. So if this demand is not enough to meet, supply is not enough to meet demand, that means that the price should go up, should increase to encourage supply and also to ration some demand. In that sense, we believe that price is the right measure to capture the scarcity. However, as you are very well aware of, price are affected very many different factors, especially in the short term and the medium term. So we try to exclude those kind of price movement due to so-called business cycles or super cycles. So super cycle, what I mean is, in the case of this commodity market, especially mineral market, different from other goods market, from the discovery of the oil field to the delivery to the market, it takes at least 10 to 30 years. Which means that even though there is strong demand growth, then the oil price will go up, reflecting those kind of strong demand growth, and definitely supply will respond to those high oil prices. However, different from other commodities or different from other, especially general goods, it takes at least 10 to 30 years for them to start the discovery, exploration, investment, and for the delivery itself. So those kind of medium-term price fluctuations due to the super cycles are not quite closely related to the oil scarcity. Oil scarcity, which is the kind of long-term availability of the oil, is mainly captured by this long-term component of the prices. So using some statistical technique, we try to extract those kind of long-term price component from the historical data. And as you can see on the left-hand side, the blue one is the real oil price, especially the West Texas Intermediate crude oil prices, which was deflated by the US CPI. From this real price series, using some statistical techniques, so-called filtering technique, we extract the long-term component of these oil prices. Especially the red one is the long-term component, excluding only the business cycle up to 8 years. And the red one plus the long-term price component, including the super cycles, which means that we capture long-term price movement, excluding all the price movement up to 30 years. As you can see in here, this kind of long-term price component has not persistently trended up or trended down. Whenever there is some so-called scarcity period, it has followed by so-called abundant period as supply responds to those high oil prices. So as you can see in here, there has been two strong upturn in past history in the late around the early 20th century and also in the late 1970s, there has been strong upturn in this long-term component of the oil prices, which we understand as kind of oil scarcity period. But recently, since around 1997 or early 2000, there has been another upturn in this long-term price component. So that's what we understand as kind of increased oil scarcity in 21st century. And what lies behind this kind of upturn in the long-term oil price, as I briefly mentioned in my previous presentation, there are two underlying factors. First one is demand, and second one is definitely supply. We will see those kind of demand and supply side maybe in the next slide a little more, but strong demand growth from emerging economies and the stagnation from oil production countries both affected this kind of trending higher oil prices since mid-2000. The right-hand side chart shows those kind of first principal component of those kind of three energy component, which is oil, natural gas, and coal. And we can see that this kind of upturn in the long-term price components is not just the feature of the oil, but we can also observe those kind of pattern in other energy sources. So before I discuss further in the demand and supply side of the oil, we start discussion in the context of primary energy. Because the strong growth of the primary energy consumption, especially from emerging economies, has been a major driving force of this demand growth of the oil. So we thought it is very natural to start from primary energy demand side. And as you can see in the left-hand side, especially since 2000, there has been a very strong demand growth of the primary energy, especially from China, as you can see in the blue bar. And As of 2009 and 10, the oil accounts for around 33% of primary energy consumption, and the second one is natural gas, which account for around 28%, and the coal account for around 23% of total primary energy consumption in the world. But as you can see in the left-hand side chart, China's primary energy consumption has increased quite substantially, and as you can see on the right-hand side, up to around 2008, China was the second largest consumer of the primary energy in the global market, but according to the latest the report from International Energy Agency, China as of end of 2010 is the number one consumer of the primary energy, which means that going forward, the economic growth of the China, especially the energy demand pattern, will be a very important factor in understanding demand side of the primary energy as well as oil. So to understand what is the relation between the economic growth and the primary energy consumption, we did some data analysis using some panel data regression just to understand the relation between per capita energy consumption, primary energy consumption, and per capita GDP using 55 country database. As you can see on the next chart, we can find some very interesting features. The left-hand side shows those kind of relation between per capita GDP and per capita energy consumption in advanced countries, while we show those relation in emerging countries on the right-hand side. As you can see, the relationship is quite flat in the case of advanced economies, which means that to raise their GDP per capita, they don't need to use more of their primary energy. However, it may reflect their economic structure, more service-based economic structure. However, as you can see on the right-hand side, in the case of emerging countries, there is strong linear relationship between per capita energy consumption and per capita GDP. So especially, as you can see here, the coefficient is very close to 1, which means that to raise the real GDP per capita by 1% point, which means that you have to increase your energy consumption also by 1%. As you can see in here, Korea, the red line, exemplifies this pattern quite well, and so far, China, which is the blue series at the bottom, follow this pattern quite strongly. So we expect that primary energy consumption from China or emerging economies will be quite strong going forward as their economy are expected to grow very fast. Then let me turn to the oil demand side. In here, we also estimate the oil demand, especially the price and income elasticity of oil demand using some panel data of around 44 countries, and we try to subgroup them into advanced countries, which is OECD, and the other emerging countries. There are three important kind of findings from this estimation. First one is that, as you can see, the price elasticity of oil demand has been quite low. In the case, in aggregate, is around 0.02, which means that when the price increased by around 10%, oil demand declined by around only 0.2%, which is quite small. We are also very surprised. And it's much less sensitive in emerging countries and somewhat more sensitive in advanced countries. Another feature that we find in here is that long-term income elasticity is somewhat lower than the short-term income elasticity, which means that when there is a positive income shock, for example, during the recovery period in 2009 and 10, there seems to be some overshooting in the oil demand, which is what we observed also in the last year, as I mentioned before, as during the recovery period, the oil consumption, oil demand has recovered quite stronger than expected, and which reflects this kind of overshooting pattern. Another interesting thing that we find in here is that the income elasticity, especially for emerging countries, is around 0.38. Well, it's quite low. Or in aggregate, is around also 0.3. Or even in the short term, it's around 0.7 or less than 0.7. However, we saw that the income elasticity of the primary energy in emerging countries is close to 1. Which means that there has been some substitution away from the oil to the other source of energies in the case of the emerging economies or other countries. So this is kind of good sign when the oil becomes more scarce and the oil prices are rising. There is some potential substitution away from oil to other energy resources. And in the previous analysis, we were focusing on the period since 1990s, and we according to our understanding, there was a big so-called big switch in 1980s after the second oil shock. There are a lot of countries, if advanced countries, changed their major input source for their electricity or power generation from oil to other resources. Especially in the case of the United States, they switched to the coal, and in the case of France, as you know, they switched to nuclear power. So as you can see in here, in early 1980s and until mid 80s, there is a big switch of oil demand. But however, going forward, we don't expect that this kind of big switch. It's hard for us to expect this kind of big switch because this power sector is not anymore the major kind of oil-consuming sector, and the transportation sector is nowadays account for almost 50% oil consumption. But under the current technology development, it's not easy for us to. It is reasonable to say that it's hard to expect this kind of big switch going forward, at least for next 5 to 10 years. With supply side, on the left-hand side, there are some interesting patterns you can observe. First one is in mid 2000, around 2005 and 6, during which the global economy was very booming, just around 2 to 3 years before the financial crisis. Even those kind of booming period, global supply of oil started stagnating, as you can clearly see on the left-hand side, and it reflects, as you can see on the right-hand side, reflects the decline of oil production from non-OPEC countries, and to some extent also from OPEC countries.